Today I'm going to show you how to sew a really cute side closure baby bib. There are 3 different pattern sizes for this project for babies and toddlers, and it is absolutely my favorite one to make as a mom of 4. I love giving practical baby shower gifts, so I typically make a bib with a matching burp cloth or passy clip or something along those lines. So go ahead and print out your pattern piece and let's get it traced onto your fabric. Don't forget, you can get that at the link below in the description box or just go to alohasewingcompany.com. So the first thing you're going to do is trace your pattern piece onto the front fabric of your bib, like I've done here. Now you can see that I am using a fleece type material for the back of my bib, but you can use any kind of absorbent fabric that you want to. Fleece or flannel or terry is most common. You're also going to need something to close your bib. I'm going to use a piece of hook and loop that is only 1 inch wide, and you can also use snaps if you know how to add snaps. So you can see I used my pattern piece and I traced it onto the front of my fabric. If you have a piece of fabric that is not see-through like mine, trace it onto the back, the wrong side of your fabric. For your fabric backing piece that you used your absorbent material, you're just going to cut a rectangle a little bit bigger than your traced out bib fabric, so that way you can pin these 2 pieces of fabric together with the right sides together. That means the pretty sides of the fabric should be kissing. Once I have this all pinned, I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine, and starting on the straight side of this bib, I'm going to sew all the way around, leaving about a 2.5 inch opening. It doesn't have to be exact, right there on the side, so that we can flip this right side out when we're done sewing. Now make sure you start and stop sewing with a back stitch to hold those stitches in place. And then we're going to sew slowly all the way around right inside of our traced line. About 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch is fine. Now you can see that I'm sewing slowly. I've sped it up just for the purpose of this video, but as I get to any curves, we're going to slow down. You're going to leave your needle inside of your fabric when you get to a spot that isn't turning or that your curve is a little bit bigger. Lift your presser foot and rotate your fabric. You don't ever want to push or pull the fabric when you sew, because that can create puckers. You want to let your machine do all that for you. So to round off any curves, sew slowly, leave the needle in your fabric, lift the presser foot, rotate your fabric, and then you keep on going all the way around like I'm doing here. And I do find it helpful when I'm rounding these corners to use a shorter length stitch for this project. If you don't know much about stitch lengths, don't worry about it. It's not necessary, but it is helpful to use a shorter length stitch to round out corners. That makes your stitches a lot smaller, so make sure it works on your fabric type though. So now once I get sewing all the way around, don't forget we are going to stop right before we leave that 2.5-ish inch opening. And you can see I have sewn all the way around right on the inside of my traced pattern line. And I use that as my guide to sew all the way around. Go ahead and remove any pins that you might have in place still. And then we want to go ahead and trim down our seam allowance. That just means to cut off any excess fabric about 1/4 of an inch away from your seam, your sewn lines. Where you're at the opening, you can see I left a little bit more fabric there. Make sure you do the same thing, so that way later when we're closing this bib, it gives us a little bit more wiggle room with that fabric to close it off. Here's my opening here, and you can see I left a little bit of extra fabric when I was cutting right around that area. The last thing that we want to do to this side is go around all of our curves and just make little slits into the fabric right up to the stitches, but being sure not to clip through our stitches. You do this so that way when we turn this right side out and you're using a fabric that doesn't stretch, it doesn't create puckers at your seams. It'll let them lay nice and flat where the curves are. If you have pinking shears, which I will show you in a minute what those look like, You can use those if you're using a fabric that cuts easily with pinking shears. You can do that instead of cutting all these little small slits. But I think it's worth doing this just to give it a nice rounded, flattened seam once we flip it right side out. These are pinking shears. Those are what I was talking about a second ago. And if you were going to use these, you didn't have to cut the slits. You would just cut your seam allowance down with those. So now we're going to go ahead and turn this fabric right side out by putting our fingers right in the hole opening that we left. I like to start by getting the top part here all the way turned out before I do the rest. And then once everything is flipped right side out, go ahead and smoothen out all of the seams on the inside of this bib so that your bib lays nice and flat. I like to use my fingers. I also go in with my chopstick here and just run them across all of my seams, poke out all of my curves, and make sure everything is laying nicely. After I do that, you can go ahead and press out any wrinkles with your iron and make sure all your seams are opened up before you do that. And you can see that's what I did here. And now we are ready to close that side opening that we left open. Put your fingers inside the hole and just pull the fabric apart. That should lay those two pieces of fabric inwards so that it matches the rest of the fabric on the outside of your bib. Pin or clip that in place, and then you're going to sew that hole opening closed. You can either just sew right there if you're a beginner, not very good with top stitching yet, or you can sew all the way around your bib to give it a neater finish, and you're gonna do that about 1/8 of an inch away from your seam. I'll show you how to do that here. Just real briefly, you're gonna start sewing right there at the opening, starting and stopping with the back stitch. And again, you can stop right after you have this closed, or you can keep going and top stitch all the way around your bib. The last step that we have is just to add our closure piece. So you can use snaps, and this is a full snap set if you have those and know how to attach those, or you can use Velcro. We're going to overlap them about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and then you place it smack dab in the middle about 1 inch from the bottom there. You can see how I'm doing that here. And if you're using hook and loop, you just need a 1-inch piece. I'm just using a small piece. You have the rough side and the soft side. I like to put the rough side on the bottom portion of the bib here, and the softer side on the neck portion. So I'm gonna place it about 3/4 of an inch below the edge, and then it's gonna overlap on top like this. So you want that other piece to be on the back side of your bib. So just pin or clip those in place if you need to, and then let's bring it over to the sewing machine, and we're gonna sew a small rectangle all the way around the outer edge of this hook and loop. If you haven't done this before, I'm gonna show you how. It is really easy, so don't think something like Velcro hook and loop is intimidating, because you can absolutely do it. So again, we're just gonna sew out on the outer edges of this hook and loop. Now that we have those sewn on, the only thing that I do that is absolutely optional, but I'm a mama of 4 and I don't like to worry about corners snagging them, so I just go to the very tips of that hook and loop and I just trim it at an angle, and I do that on all 4 sides and on both pieces of that Velcro because it can be kind of sharp. So that'll make sure it never rubs on baby's skin. Now you are completely done. This is super cute and I love that it closes on the side instead of on the back of the neck. It's way easier to get on and off. You can hook a passy clip to it or embroider a name on it, do whatever you want to do. And it is super cute to pair it with a burp cloth or something along those lines, a baby blanket, baby shoes, and we have patterns for those as well. Here's the matching burp cloth that I made, and I'll leave a link below for that too. I hope you enjoyed my sewing tutorial. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You have no idea how much it really helps, and you'll be notified anytime a new pattern is released, and that is super easy to follow because I gear towards beginners. I have patterns for children, for babies, for household stuff, for adults, clothing, all kinds of stuff. So make sure you check us out at AlohaSewingCompany.com. And before you go, mahalo.